Go to the Denver Broncos because they are flying high. Get it? They traded for Russell Wilson this offseason. Lost Drew Lock and Noah Fant along with Shelby Harris in the trade to Seattle. They lost Teddy Bridgewater as their backup when he bounced to Miami to back up Tua Tagovailoa, and added Randy Gregory in a sort of controversial signing where the Cowboys wouldn't pony up DJ Jones, Alex Singleton, Kwan Williams, Josh Johnson, backup quarterback. Fun. And Billy Turner. So yeah, they added some nice pieces, but Russell Wilson, clearly the crown jewel of their offseason, and the NFL has decided to shine. They're over under, by the way, 10, 2021 record, 7-10. Everyone has been saying for, frankly, years now that the Broncos were a quarterback away with their roster and everything that they have in place. They just needed that quarterback and they could become a Super Bowl contender. Their odds have been short in the last two off seasons because everyone believed that Aaron Rodgers was going to go there. He was only bolstered when Nathaniel Hackett was hired as their new head coach after they fired Vic Fangio. Instead, they work out a deal for Russell Wilson and the first game of the year for the Broncos back in Seattle, where they're like 6-point favorites or something, or maybe it's like 4-point favorites, something very bizarre. It might be 3.5. Anyway, Monday Night Football in Seattle. Russ returns. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better start for Russ at Seattle. Clearly, you have some emotions there, but the Seahawks don't profile as a great team. Denver should win that game. Houston at home, 49ers at home, maybe trying to figure out their whole quarterback situation. And then at the Raiders to start. Colts at home next, at the Chargers, Jets at home, at the Jaguars. Like, all these teams who finished last in their division and get these crossover games with the AFC West got totally screwed because you draw the Broncos. And like, that's just not fair. It's hard to picture the Broncos getting off to a slow start with this schedule.
Yeah, sorry, I was putting money on the Broncos week 1. I think that's the craziest schedule quirk in my opinion. I think it was very weird. Why would the NFL want to open week 1 with Russell Wilson making his return to Seattle? That seems like something you would kind of want to build up to. I get it, putting it in the early stages of the regular season, but week 1 really shocked me. And yeah, I think that's obviously going to be a win. Listen, Denver has 4 of their first 6 games in prime time. I think that's absolutely wild. And going back to that week 1 matchup, maybe it's a good thing for Russell Wilson to kind of get that monkey off his back early so he can kind of get started with this new change of scenery. Looking at this first, 8 games right before the bye in week 9, what's your projected record there? Because the way I look at it, I think they could be 6-2.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to have them splitting with the Chargers, so that's a loss. I'm going to have them, I guess, splitting with the Raiders. We've been having all these teams split with the Raiders, but like that maybe, I mean, we'll talk about them in a second. I don't see them losing to Jacksonville, to the Jets. I think they'll beat the Colts at home. I think they'll beat the Texans at home. I think they'll beat the Seahawks, although I would not count Seattle out in that game. I think 5-3 would be a kind of a disaster for them. Like with this schedule, you really shouldn't lose more. 5-3. Okay, 4-4 is an absolute nightmare. 5-3 is a little bit of a disappointment, and then I think 6-2 is probably the average projection that I would have them at going into that week 9 bye. So we're probably on the same page there.
Okay, perfect. And I mean, after the bye week, it definitely gets a lot more interesting.
Yes.
Jumping ahead a little bit, that week 13 through 18, really tough. Ravens, Chiefs, Cardinals, Rams, Chiefs again, Chargers to finish out the year. As we've been talking about, if you're betting on these over-under win totals, it's really going to come down to the buzzer there. That's a really tough stretch to end the regular season.
Tough.
Yeah.
I mean, week 13 on for the Broncos. So like they should, I think it's okay to give them a loss at the Titans out of the bye. I mean, it could easily win the game, but we can't just absolutely disrespect the Titans here. I mean, you're bullish on the Titans usually.
I'm glad you said it.
Raiders at home should be a win, and at the Panthers should be a win. Like Russ wins on the East Coast, especially North Carolina. So let's say we have them at 6-2 going to the bye, and then 2-1 in those next 3 games. So you're 8-3. That I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think they sort of need to be 8-3.
Correct.
Because like you point out, week 13 on at Baltimore versus the Chiefs, versus the Cardinals, at the Rams, at the Chiefs, versus the Chargers. Even if they're a great football team, you're probably best case going 3-3 in that stretch.
Yep. That's exactly where I think I'm laying it. I mean, you talked about splitting the season series. I think I'm doing that with the Chiefs yet again. I have them losing to the Ravens. I think Baltimore could be a really sneaky team this year. Cardinals will be interesting. I'd rather catch them late in the year than early in the season, just going off of recent history, giving them a loss to the Rams. And then week 18 versus the Chargers is going to be very interesting. And as I mentioned, I gave the Chargers a loss in that matchup. So I think Denver can end the season on a win. But again, playoff hopes, your tickets cashing for this over/under win total really going to come down to those last couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, I think it's like if you bet the over, so we sort of consensus got them to 11 wins. So I mean, again, kind of I don't like the schedule for the Broncos and the Chargers is so much easier than the Chiefs. So I mean, I guess I don't mind, and that's you know what? It's because the freaking Raiders made the playoffs, so the Chargers have a third place schedule and the Broncos have a fourth place schedule, and we think those two teams are probably better than the Raiders. Yeah, I mean it's hard. Like, anything less than 10 wins for either of these teams is probably a massive disappointment for their season, and probably means they won't be in the playoffs. I don't know that both are going to get to 10 wins. It is possible. We saw the Chiefs had 12, Raiders had 10, and Chargers had 9 last year. Like, Chargers, it could have easily happened, but yeah, I think you probably need to be, if you want to bet the over, you need to bank on them being at 8 wins going into that stretch starting in week 13, because you've got, a 3-3 finish. They can go 4-2 if they're a great team. Like Russ is, Arizona could be falling apart. Like, they could, who knows? The Ravens are injured again. Tons of different things happen over the course of the NFL season. But I think you need to be thinking 3-3 if you decide to take that over, meaning you're going to need 8-3 coming in, because 7-4 would get you to. Is that right? 7-4. Yeah, 7-4 would get you to a push, but you're trying to win it. So that's something to think about. All right.
Yeah, and before we move on, I want to mention too, this seems really tough to kind of figure out, because I definitely subscribe to the theory that this team is ready to compete, to contend right now, all over the roster. All they've been missing is the quarterback, like you mentioned. But at the same time, are we really going to pencil in Russell Wilson as a top 10, top 5 passer in 2022 in this new offense? I mean, he didn't have that great of a season last year. I do understand that he was dealing with the hand injury, but some people those Broncos fans who are really gun-ho, who are placing their mortgages on the over with that 10 wins, I'd be careful, because who knows what Russell Wilson's going to look like. And he's under a lot of pressure, man. I think the ceiling really hinges on the new quarterback. So that's really the kind of storyline to watch when it comes to the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing to worry about too with Denver, and again, I think they're a good team, but we're sort of just automatically assigning them greatness and free.
Oh, no.
Is Brinson gone?
It's the Jordan Dajani show. It's about time, baby.
I'm here too, Jordan, to help us carry through until Brinson's Chrome gets back in a minute. Do we want to go Vegas?
Yeah, let's go Vegas. I was going to ask you your thoughts if you had to pick over under 10 for the Denver Broncos. What's your thoughts?
It wasn't even Chrome. It just StreamYard just tossed me.
Well, the Jordan Dajani show is very interesting for 30 seconds.
I was already back in the waiting room and hearing y'all laughing. You're like, oh my God. Debo Mercer, you just be glad Debo wasn't on a call for another podcast or something. All of a sudden you're like, well, I'm now going to filibuster for 3 minutes about the Las Vegas Raiders, everyone.
I'm going under, Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would, man, the schedule is so easy, but they're just they could lose to San Francisco and Indy. And people have stumbled against the Jaguars, and they're definitely a better team. Like if they lose at Seattle week 1, all of a sudden your over is in kind of peril. So, and like I was saying, right as it cut me off, a new head coach, not an elite offensive line, some really nice weapons, but a new head coach, new quarterback, and new pieces. Now I know that has won the Super Bowl the last 2 years with the Rams and the Buccaneers, but neither of those teams, as I pointed out, had a new head coach. So like like everything was the same except for the quarterback, and we're talking. So I do worry about that a little bit, but
yeah, I think they're a team that could explode or flail down the stretch. It's going to be really tough to tell.
yeah.